the most important contribution of American planning to the history of planning. So here it is, you can see that the buildings are fairly dispersed. There is maybe a remnant of axial relationships, which was very strong actually with the universities, of Thomas Jefferson or Frederick Olmsted, in the Stanford University, University of Virginia. The axial relationships are very strong with some of the big buildings, very central on the campus. And then, even though the campuses consisted of freestanding buildings, they were connected either with arcades, very similar to your composition around here, with the arcades or with landscaping or with balustrades or with other elements. So the proposal is that you differentiate, you basically define the newly found axial relationships and creating the principal axis, recreating the principal axis visually and physically by connecting the buildings, the freestanding buildings, with new construction, with arcades, landscaping, etc. In some cases, even organic gardens and local food production can be part of the campuses, and there are many places around the country where colleges and universities are doing this. Another very interesting case study is the transformation of underutilized golf course. Recently, till very recent actually, the golf course was really the true amenity of our sprawling communities. The golf course with the suburban, with the residential development around it was very symbolic of the success of suburbia America. However, in recent years, and in the past probably 3 years, there are hundreds of golf courses which have been closed due to economic conditions, environmental concerns, etc., economic insolvency in most cases, rising land prices. So it wasn't in some places, of course, not before the crisis, but there are many golf courses which are remaining fallow. Though this drawing actually shows the golf course in a pretty good shape, at some point, if it's not used, this land becomes fallow, the park becomes probably even dangerous. And even if these people around are accustomed to their long views through the golf course, maybe redevelopment into a mixed-use center may be one of the solutions. Usually the golf courses are polluted, and they're environmentally not the best unless there are some organic types, but they have very high levels of arsenic in the soil. So what needs to be done is to have a landfill, and this landfill can come out of canals or lakes which are basically dug out either on the border, on the boundaries, which will appease to some extent the residential neighbors around, and then it can be used as stormwater runoff and also as a civic amenity. Repair of thoroughfares, obviously this is an obvious technique, making the thoroughfares complete streets, and I'm not going to dwell too long on this. Obviously, a freeway can be transformed in certain things if a freeway is cutting through a residential neighborhood, or if it is already urbanized with commercial sprawl development along it. So maybe looking into making from a freeway a parkway or a boulevard with medians, with transportation corridors in between is not impossible, and it has been done in some places around the country, as well as intersections of different sorts. When you have a big freeway interchange, it can become DuPont circle of some sort, urbanizing its edges. Arterials transformed into boulevards and avenues. And of course, the classic cul-de-sac transformation, which here is shown in two interpretations. One is more conservative, with a green close in the middle, with probably just some pedestrian and bicycle connections, using a small easement between lots to create some connectivity with the other cul-de-sac. And then another one, which is by acquiring one property on the upper corner, then you can puncture a street through a cul-de-sac, and this way connect larger areas. This is a collector repair into a kind of a phasing of a collector repair, that you can start only with your streetscape, and then this will invite basically later real estate development, kind of the vertical development can come later. You start with the median, the sidewalks, the parallel parking, counting down the street, making it of a different character. The repair at block scale, as I said, we're operating at all scales. There are different mega blocks in suburbia, which you can achieve different technologies. For example, this happens to be a commercial mega block, and how you basically introduce new streets and new development of smaller and larger scale, public space, and privatizing actually some of the parking lots, or intensifying the use. This is an interesting one, transformation of a slab and tower mega block into walkable urban fabric. A case study which it can be used in many cases, many cities. The slab and tower mega blocks are a kind of inheritance from the urban renewal era. They are very predominant in Western and Eastern Europe as well. So there are vast unassigned spaces, whether it's parking or just leftover, lightly landscaped or even unlandscaped land. So how you embed the slabs and towers within urban fabric is shown here. Again, this kind of no man's land, it is better for it to be probably assigned, and a kind of private ownership introduced at a smaller scale, live-work units, 3-story, 3-4-story, maybe apartment units, some civic buildings, kind of to make a small urban infill out of the block. Densification of McMansion block by infilling with townhouses. This can sound also fairly contradictory. How is it possible to even imagine a block of McMansions in suburbia infilled with anything else? It wouldn't have been possible if we haven't seen many foreclosed properties, many properties abandoned. So it is possible that this can happen. This is a typical block, and then intensification with townhouses in the back. This historically has happened in Boston, for example, in different times actually, when the prices went really high. Many McMansions were turned into multifamily, and townhouses were built in the back blocks of the. And the land was so expensive that they could even park underground. Here the proposal is with surface parking, but with some interventions. This is not impossible. Some interventions like this can happen if somebody buys one block. It will be difficult from a rezoning point of view, because this will be kind of a sporadic, small interventions, and how they will fit in the bigger picture. This will be interesting to see. This is introduction of apartment villas, infill with apartment villas. Then densification of just a residential block. Usually residential lots in suburbia are fairly deep, so puncturing of an alley is not absolutely out of the question. Of course, if there is homeowners association and property owners agreement to do that. But if people are allowed to build outbuildings, to have small apartments above their garages, for example, or build like secondary units in their backyards. You see that they're in their backyards, they're like secondary units, whether they're rentals or just additional living space. Maybe they will think otherwise. So all of these tools need to be made available to our suburban communities, for people to choose from if they wish to do that. And again, the shrinking city phenomenon, residential block de-densification, when people basically abandon their houses. Places, as I mentioned, Michigan and Ohio have experimented with these, and these are similar strategies where several lots are replatted into larger family compounds. And with agricultural basically use allowed on their lots, or in some cases, clustered several lots clustered in one space, forming a stormwater retention green or kind of a community garden for common use, as in the last drawing. So this is a typical suburban residential block. This is how it's basically agricultural lots and family compounds outcome. And then another outcome with a city green with a community garden on one side. And then the final scale is at the building scale. We wanted also to offer remediation techniques to retrofit a kind of the primary building prototypes as defined suburbia. Some of these interventions are more ambitious and some of them are more modest, but we wanted to show that certain things can be done at the smallest scale of planning. Amak mentioned, for example, on the periphery. The interesting thing about this one is that you can see the big public space in the middle, the big green. Actually, it is the precise dimension of Piazza del Campo in Siena, Italy. Actually, it fits perfectly well in the food court of the mall. So this was a kind of an interesting planning exercise. Transformation of business park into a town center. There are some interesting synergies in office parks which can be taken advantage of. There are retail experts who say that probably 200 square feet of retail office space can support 5 square feet of restaurants and 4 square feet of retail. So basically, restaurants, retail can coexist very well with office parks. Of course, it's balanced well with residential uses as well. You can see here the dispersed building and parking layouts and how an office park can be repaired into a transit-oriented town center. This is an example of an environmental type of urbanism, which not only incorporates the green architecture with the green roofs and solar panels and sound walls and wind turbines and all of that, but also an environmental type of urbanism, which is a kind of a medieval, more fluid, more organic type of shapes, which are ideally suited for better air circulation and natural ventilation. The Edge City, I'm not going to dwell too long on it because I think I'm running out of time. The Edge City, of course, it is just one word or two. It's one of the most difficult contenders for repair because there are great big concentrations of commercial space. In some cases, lodging hotels. In some cases, condominiums. So all the elements are there to make a great place, but at the end, it's just they're so far away from each other. There is no pedestrian quality to it, so it will be very hard to retrofit such places. And Tyson's Corner is one example. This actually happens to be a portion of Tyson's Corner, just a tiny little bit. So we'll see how Tyson's Corner, with their very ambitious program for the Edge City retrofit, will be implemented. This is one Edge City, so-called Edge City, which is repaired into regional urban core. This happens to be in Miami-Dade County. There is a mall right there, which is the Miami, called the Dade Mall. And when this project was done, it was a very well-doing mall, and it's still kind of faring quite well. But the proposal was that we embed the mall into new fabric. Already there were a lot of big office buildings, so there was a kind of a concentration needed. But what was needed was the residential component to rebalance this place and to make it a kind of a multimodal and transit-oriented development. Transformation of a suburban campus into traditional urban campus. I think this is an important one. We are right now here in this fairly grand building, and this campus of yours, which is, I may say, kind of more recent generations of campuses. But it used to be that the American university campus actually was built in a different manner, usually with a college town next to it. It's very much more integrated with other uses or with other things around it, or with a structure which was a little bit better oriented towards a pedestrian environment. Usually commuter campuses have more, pay a lot of attention to parking lots and where the cars go, but not so much to kind of the pedestrian environment. And this is an example of such a kind of a post-war commuter type of campus which can be actually recovered and brought to the level of the campuses when kind of the American planning tradition was most proud of the campuses. The American classical American campus is probably the most important contribution of American planning to the history of planning. So here it is. You can see that the buildings are fairly dispersed. There is maybe a remnant of axial relationships, which was very strong actually with the universities, of Thomas Jefferson or Frederick Olmsted, in the Stanford University, University of Virginia. The axial relationships are very strong with some